No cows were hurt in the making of this video.
Hi, in this video we're going to cover a purchase order. So the order you're going to send to your factory or supplier when you've confirmed the final price and the product and you know the exact specification, you're ready to go ahead, then you would issue them a purchase order. And usually factories in China will ask for the purchase order plus the 30% deposit before they start manufacturing. So we're just going to go over some of the key points on the purchase order so you're fully aware of the different things that should be included. Okay, so first of all, basics, a reference for the purchase order, a date. This is an older one, just as an example for you. If the factory have given you a quotation and they're giving you a final price and you have a reference for that, you can include that in there. Key points to include is obviously the factory who you're addressing the purchase order to, their full address, the contact, the tel, fax isn't necessary, email and the web address. And in this example, also you need to include your own company name, your own address and your own contact details. I include it on the bottom. You can change the format of how this looks as long as the same information is included. That's the key. So your own contacts, the factory contact details, and then we go into the details of the order itself. So LC reference, issuing bank. LC is letter of credit. This doesn't really apply to most of you. If you do need to use this, you'll know about it. But basically a letter of credit is where the bank in your home country will take the money for the whole order. So in this case, $42,636. They'll take that out of your account and set it aside, and then they're writing a letter to the factory's bank saying, we have the $42,636. Your supplier will get it when they meet the conditions of the letter of credit. So it's almost like a certificate of deposit. They're just holding off the money when the factories produce the goods. Let's say in the letter of credit, the terms might be that the goods need to pass an inspection, and then they need to give the bill of lading, which is once the goods are loaded onto sea to my bank, then they'll release the funds. So the letter of credit takes the control of the production out of your hands, control for the payment out of your hands and into the bank's takeover. But they don't do that for free. There's quite heavy charges on both ends for the fees to do with that, and also there's a transaction fee on top of that as well. So it's just easier to TT money directly to your factories once you're comfortable dealing with them. There's escrow services that exist for new suppliers also. So for LC reference, issuing bank, you don't need to include that. It's not absolutely necessary at the start. It's only if it's relevant to you. Payment terms. So the usual with most factories is 30% deposit with the order and 70% balance by telegraphic transfer TT after final goods inspection passed. And I'll go into the quality standard here. So basically I'll pay them, but I want to inspect the goods before shipment so that I can check there's no issue, they can fix it before they get their 70%. And I absolutely recommend that you do that you always inspect prior to shipping the goods in China, because it will save you a lot of time and effort. If the goods have gone on a boat for 45 days, then they arrive, then you find a quality problem, you've got two issues. One, you've just lost 45 days. Two, the goods are with you, the factories back in China. How are you going to get the goods back? Someone has to pay that cost. So you've lost the cost of shipping from China to the US. You're going to have to ship back again, so US to China, and you've lost all of the time in addition to that. If you're shipping both ways and it's between 20 and 45 days, then you're losing 40 to 90 days plus all the money for that. Versus just arranging a pre-shipment inspection for $300 and making sure that the goods are on the spot before leaving China. Much better option. Even if it delays your shipment by 3 or 4 days while you arrange an inspection, it's not such a big deal compared to having to ship the goods back or pay the freight cost. Price at, so this is the Incoterm, and we'll produce another video to go into more details on Incoterms. But freight on board, FOB, Hong Kong, basically means the factory pays for the delivery or export of the goods from China into Hong Kong, because they function as two different systems. They're paying right the way to get the goods onto the boat, the container ship, all of the associated fees with getting it to there, and then after it's loaded up onto the boat, the costs from the port in Hong Kong all the way to delivery to Amazon warehouse or my own warehouse is at my expense under those Incoterms. And you can Google the Incoterms and learn more about them, but really you're either getting quoted Ex Works, which is the goods are made by the factory and you pay all costs, even collecting from the factory, export fees and everything. I don't recommend that. I recommend you start with FOB and then the nearest port or airport. So you need to tell the factory if it's going to go by air, because the costs associated with air FOB are slightly different from the costs associated with sea FOB. But normally you should be requesting your prices at FOB, local port or airport. That way it's the factory's responsibility to pay all the costs and the export and have the license documents to get the goods out of China. Then once it's loaded up onto the plane or the boat, then it's your responsibility. It's much simpler, much less headache. So usually I include details of the transportation if I know those. So the vessel name, sailing on, about, from and to. This again isn't necessary, so you don't have to include that into your purchase order. Okay, so now we're going over into a bit more detail on the product itself. So I have a product reference, and with that product reference there will also be a full specification, which is photos of the product and any exact details to do with the product and the packaging that's included, so like a bill of materials. This reference links to that, and the factory have a golden sample, so as per approved sample. So they have an actual sample of what I've signed off as, yes, this is what I'm ordering. 2, they have a photo and specification to go with that sample. That's what the purchase order's for. That's what I'm ordering. I'm ordering that product according to these specifications. So if there's any variance on that later, and I need to dispute it, at least then I have all the documentation in place to say this is what should have been made. So then I cover some basic specification for the product on the purchase order, but I have a detailed separate specification, and I recommend you have that as well. Even if it's just photos of the product that you're ordering, and then the size and the materials, just as many details as you can get down. You should be using that for when you're getting the prices and the quotes from various factories anyway, and you should then reference that in your purchase order too. So it's custom print with a car charger, with the manual, packed into blistered and into approved custom color box, 4 pieces per SRP, and then this is 2011. This is an older purchase order, still use the same template today, and it was to fit the iPhone 3G, iPhone 3GS, and the iPhone 4, and it's an FM transmitter. And in addition to having a specification for the product itself, I also have an additional specification for how it's packed. So the images show step by step how the product is packed. First, the FM transmitter goes into the plastic tray which holds it. Then that goes into the color box. Then 4 color boxes go into a white carton, and then 16 white cartons go into the larger carton. That's how it's designed, as per approved sample. So really you need to have a detailed specification for the product. Leave no gray areas, because if you haven't taken photos of the product and shown them exactly what you want, and in addition to the product specification, the packing specification, I also have a quality standard for the product, and also have told the factory defects to watch out for prior to placing the order, things that I definitely won't approve, and I leave that open. Any other defects, also not accept any other defects over AQL, and AQL is an inspection standard, and you can have a look at that on our quality control video. So specification, packing specification, quality specification, and the purchase order is actually what the factory get when placing an order. So 12,000 sets, the unit price, the total. and this is just one item on this order, you can have multiple. I tend to keep it one purchase order per item because it's just easier to organize, follow up, etc. Okay, and then the outer carton shipping marks. These are the marks that go on the carton in which the product's packed. And for this particular client that I was working with, these are the marks that they would request, plus their company name, which I've removed for obvious reasons. Product box barcode, the SRP barcode, and the outer carton barcode. So we would have a reference barcode on the outside of the box as well. But this, the part number, the description, the order number, total units, made in China, carton number, the weight, the dimensions are standard. Really, you should have that on every carton anyway. And additional ones if you need to, but those markings are the absolute basics that you need to have. Main marks being the big sides of the box, side marks being the small side of the box. Okay, so in my purchase order, I also have the quality requirement, so the AQAL level, and if you watch our video on quality control in China, you can see more about what that means. So it's level 2, major 1.0, minor 2.5. So the standard is set with the order. So there's no dispute later when we send in our third-party inspection company to check the goods. They're using this standard, they're using the approved sample, they're using the specifications and the packing detail. Any variation from that is counted towards the minor and major defects. If there's too many, the shipment's rejected and the factory needs to rework it. But we're telling them up front everything, so there's no argument later. Fit for purpose, that's a way of just making sure that if there's something we've missed on our list of potential issues that they need to avoid, if it still doesn't function correctly, it's not fit for purpose, then they still need to resolve the issue. And that's why the pre-shipment inspection is key, because if you catch this stuff in China, you can refuse balance payment and you have a stronger negotiation position. There have been times where I've shipped goods and then there's been an issue and the factory have almost said, sorry, it's your problem, because it's been, in their eyes, as soon as it leaves China, you've accepted it, you've paid for it. It's your problem. You make the money, you make the 50-100% markup by importing it to the other country. You take the risk as soon as it leaves China. It's our problem in China. So I've just got a few. There was an issue on the previous order, so I just remind them here. No flash on inside plastic component, no loose button, back and rear case to be properly aligned. But that's also on the quality control document. Delivery is FOB Hong Kong. The full quantity, which I spelled wrong in this case, is 12,000 pieces, and they were due on the 25th of December. Full quantity, including packaging, fully packed, ready for inspection. So I want the goods ready on that date. That's what was agreed with the factory. And sometimes they're delayed by a few days or a week or so. But what you need to do is be on top of them, because if the louder you are, the more likely is that they're gonna, I'm not saying be abusive and swear and shout at them on the phone. What I'm saying is keep pushing them to stick to the schedule. And if they're breaking that schedule, even if it's not vital for you, be careful, because if you just leave them to do it without pushing them, they can, that delay can blow out of all proportion. It can be several weeks late as they push other orders in front of yours, because you're not pushing them to deliver yours as well. So you even though you've agreed a time frame, you still need to check partway through the order that everything's on track, everything's on schedule, and as you're approaching the deadline, just to make sure, right, is everything going to be ready for the inspection on time, etc. And just stay on top of it, follow up the order. That pretty much covers what needs to go on the purchase order. I mean, you can use this, there's templates online you can use, but when dealing with China, I absolutely recommend that you have the exact delivery date, the quality level you've agreed, and a full separate specification with photos of the product and the packaging and everything, and a golden sample which you've approved and signed off and sent to them. So there's no dispute later on as to what was ordered, what was agreed at the start. This video will self-destruct in 5 seconds.